Welcome, dear listeners, to Broadcasts from Elsewhere. And this is a bonus episode for No Way November today. So I figured it'd be a nice little Christmas present for you guys, to give you guys a little extra bonus content for some more bad movies. So today, and on Monday as well, I'll be checking out two more about the good movies, then moving on to Christmas stuff. Some of the Christmas stuff is also going to be terrible, but, mix of good and bad, and somewhere in between, probably. But today we're checking out one that I've been wanting to do, called The Heavenly Kid, which, despite being a very misleading title, is not really about heavenly... it's kind of a heavenly child. Basically, the premise of this movie that we're looking at today is that a young man dies and goes to the afterlife, and is told if he wants to get into what's called Uptown, he has to do a task for, quote, the Big Chief, which I'm assuming is God, because who else would that be, right? And his task is to basically help this kid who has literally zero riz, basically, get a girl. That's really it. This movie is apparently very well loved, at least on IMDb, it would seem, as even though it has a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, most of the reviews I found for it seem to praise the heck out of it, man. They all say... Here, let me read off a few for you. Not the full reviews, just the titles. Okay. Heartfelt, sentimental 80s comedy. It is not really any of those, I would say. Except teen comedy, yeah, sure. And yet another likable 80s pick. I'm like, I guess. It is par for the course. It is very 80s in its defense. So, I could see it. Just a lot of these... This one's makes the most sense here. It says, Angel with Dirty Wings, which is definitely the best description of this. Because Bobby, our titular heavenly kid, is honestly someone who probably shouldn't be going to heaven. But it's not... Okay, it is terrible. It's not terrible. It's bad, but it's not like the worst thing ever. Let's put it that way. It at least tries to be good. And that's all you can ask for with some of these movies, It's definitely not bad on purpose, I don't think, at least. They definitely tried to make a good movie. And in all honesty, it's not a terrible movie. I did enjoy it still, which is funny considering it's kind of silly, but I like bad things. I like stupid movies every now and again, Sometimes it's nice to just put on a movie and turn off your brain for a little bit, because, as long as it's enjoyable, and as long as you're not sitting there bored out of your mind, then I think it's a good movie. It's a passable movie. I think there's something that we should think about as far as criticism goes, and that's that a movie does not have to be a groundbreaking hit for it to be a good movie. And while this is not a good movie, it is not a terrible movie, and it is something that is entertaining. And sometimes that's all you can ask for, is that a movie entertains you. And yeah, like I said, this movie is weird, it's dumb, but it's entertaining, and that's what's important. So, before I get into this, if you want to go watch it before listening, this is on Tubi, because of course it is, for free. It's only about an hour and a half long. Easy watch through, honestly. Pretty entertaining. The soundtrack's not the greatest. There's a slight bit of nudity in one scene, and that's about it. Other than that, just a lot of innuendo. So, yeah. So, let's get on to the plot of this very surprisingly dirty Angel movie. Spoilers ahead. Alright. So, we start out in the early 60s. We're never given an exact year, which is frustrating given something that's introduced later on in the film, but we'll get to that. Here we get to meet one of our main characters. His name is Bobby. He's this greaser kid getting into it with this other guy about his girlfriend. Basically, the other dude had made a pass at her or something, and so to prove his manhood and all this shit, they decided to do a game of guts or chicken, which is it's a type of race, basically. I learned about this actually on a different movie, or actually on a different show, I should say, called Quantum Leap, where they did an episode that took place in the 60s, where the main character, Sam Beckett, had to do a chicken race against another character. But anyways, basically a game of chicken, what it is you get two people, they basically speed ahead towards a cliff, and either have to brake or jump out of their vehicle before they get to the cliff. Just whoever brakes or whoever jumps out first is the loser. So they get in their cars and they start off, right? Going hell fast and shit. And the other kid jumps out not too long after they start, so he's already out of the race, right? So Bobby goes ahead and he turns to go ahead and jump out. It's like, hey, nothing to lose, right? Already won. But somehow he got his bracelet stuck, his like chain bracelet he was wearing, stuck on the steering wheel. Now he can't jump out, so he can't. Which, like, bro, just take the bracelet off. Maybe you don't have time for that, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, it goes off the cliff, his car, and crashes and explodes and burns on the beach below. And the worst thing to me, though, about that scene is that the whole time they're doing the actual, like, racing portion, they're playing this, like, while the car is exploding and everything, they're playing this really cheerful song, which is like the theme song that they made for this movie, and it's like super positive, but like it shouldn't be, because this guy just died, and it's like, because like the car is just burning and people are just sitting there screaming, and like his girlfriend's like, oh my god, and everything, and the song's just going, on my way to where I wanna be, and it's like, that's not where you want to be, I'm pretty sure, because you were dead. Dead. I mean, unless he was suicidal, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't. So, I don't know. It just seems so tone deaf for the scene. Oh yeah, I did want to take a quick moment to mention the girlfriend in this movie, or his girlfriend, who we do also see later on growing up, is actually played by the mother from Malcolm in the Middle, which was very surprising to me. Like, she's like the only person that you're probably going to recognize in this movie, to be honest with you. But yeah, it just seemed like a fun little thing. Especially because like she's also plays her like teenage counterpart, which was crazy to me, because I didn't realize that the first time watching it. So I've seen this movie twice now, by the way. Once because of the movie watching group I'm in, and second time because, well, this podcast for content. But anywho, after he dies in that ridiculous scene, he pretty much wakes up to find himself on a subway train, and he's just riding the rails basically on the train. When the subway stops, you can hear some of the subway staff yelling about like, "Hey, this way to Uptown, this way to Uptown," so that everyone's clamoring towards these escalators, right? So a lot of other people go to the escalators, and they all get to ride them up and everything. But these guard guys stop Bobby when he tries to get on the escalator, right? And they tell him, like, no, you gotta stop, you gotta wait here and meet Rafferty. And we see this crazy old man riding on a fucking motorcycle. Because, you know, they have motorcycles in Purgatory, I guess. But that's basically what this feels like it is. But he runs in and he nearly runs over Bobby. By the way, I forgot to mention Bobby, if you're wanting a frame of reference. Basically just imagine John Travolta from Grease, because he's literally bootleg John Travolta. So, literally, it's like if you bought John Travolta from Wish. There you go. That's Bobby. Anyways, he almost gets run over by Rafferty, and he's like, oh my god, you could have killed me. And they all kind of like snicker about that because he's already dead, you know. But, so Rafferty gives him a ride to this, I think it's supposed to be a bar. Anyways, they go to the bar, and on their way there, he explains to them that he's dead, more or less. It's really not much of an explanation, because you just hear Bobby say, I'm dead, or something like that, and that's it. That's the most we get about that. But another weird thing here in Midtown is what they call this place, by the way, where they go to the bar and everything. It's always like really fucking smoky. So I don't know if it's just supposed to be mist, or if it's just like somebody constantly puffing a goddamn cigar in Midtown or something, but either way, just a very weird note, you know? But Rafferty explains to him that, you know, this is Midtown, but if you want to get to Uptown, which is heaven in this universe, then you have to complete assignment for the Big Chief, which is God. You see, because he himself, as is not worthy of heaven, basically. So that's why he has to basically prove himself with this task. But he has to wait for a task before he can, you know, just go out and do whatever. So he tells him, you gotta stay on the train and just ride it around until we find something for you. Which really must suck. Like, because he's not the only one in the train, too, of course. But he explains that they do this to keep, like, Midtown less populated, basically. Like, not overpopulated, not overcrowded. But it's kind of fucked up, because he gets on there, and there's a Viking, a Civil War soldiers in there, and just several other, like, really, like, old school, like, historical-looking characters just hanging around who've not gotten their assignments to become, like, to go to heaven. So he rides the rails, and we flash forward now to the present, which in this movie is 1985. And here we meet our other protagonist, Lenny. He works at a diner, along with one of his best friends, or his only friend really, Melissa. He's working in the kitchen, fucking up the burgers somehow. The way that they show him like making the burgers, I have to wonder if this kid has ever made a fucking burger in his life. I mean, maybe not, he's a teenager, but he just has little balls of ground beef on the fucking stove. Like, he didn't even make them in the patties. They're just balls of beef. It looks so bad. Regardless, the boss sends him out to the diner floor to go ahead and help with customers, because clearly he's not doing any good in the freaking kitchen. But he mainly kicks him out because he knocked over some jars and shit. Anywho, on the sales floor he sees his crush, which is this popular girl named Sharon, who of course doesn't know he exists, so, why would she even want him in the first place? But he's of course still crazy about her, so he gets all starstruck about it. And you can already tell from the beginning, because Melissa was like quick to point out that Sharon's popular girl, and she doesn't know you, and she'll never know you, and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty obvious, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this right now. Melissa is obviously the love interest for Lenny, supposed to be the love interest. Sure, Sharon's there, and yes, she's the one who's pursued through most of the movie, but it's made pretty obvious that Melissa is the actual love interest, or should be. But it doesn't matter, because we don't actually spend any time developing that. We just get a few scenes where she makes it pretty obvious that she wants him, and he just completely ignores it. To me, it felt obvious, at least, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Anywho, he takes their order, the girl that he's falling for. She's there with these two bully guys. I can't remember their first names, but their last names they go by are Gallo and McIntyre. So, it's 80s, so of course you gotta call them by their last name. So, anyways, those two are with her, and I think they had one other girl, but she's not important, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, he takes their order, and he comes back with their food, and some other guy in the restaurant trips him, and he spills everything on Sharon. And that really pisses off his boss, so his boss ends up firing. But while that's happening, we get to see Bobby and Rafferty ride into the real world, or whatever, however this works. The point is, there's a bunch of flashing lights, and then suddenly Rafferty and Bobby are here in the parking lot on Rafferty's motorcycle. And they enter just in time to see that scene, to see Lenny spill everything all over Sharon. And of course Bobby laughs it off. It's like, he doesn't call him a klutz, but it's better than what he actually says. What he actually says is a word that I found out is actually, well, he says it like a different way, but the point is, apparently, I found out that's sort of a derogatory term, so it's probably better to not say it. But I guess I can spell it so that you guys at least know what I'm talking about. S-P-A-Z. Apparently it's a bit of a derogatory term these days when it comes to people with, disabilities and stuff, I heard. I'm not 100% sure about that, but, just so you don't, trick anybody, there we go. Anyways, so, after he sees that, he calls him that, and then he asks, so what's my assignment? And Rafferty points him, and well, that kid, basically. So yeah, basically his assignment is Lenny, and we'll find out his exact assignment later, but it'll be soon, don't worry. So Lenny gets fired by his boss for that little spillage problem, and he's forced to leave the diner. So he runs off, he bikes away, and we cut to later that day, and we see him, he's reading poetry on a cliff, as one does, because, what person hasn't just sat on the edge of a cliff and started reading poetry aloud to themselves? I do it every fucking Tuesday, don't you? But he, of course, falls off this cliff, but thankfully Bobby is there at the bottom of the cliff to catch him. And right after he gets caught, he just starts vomiting on his jacket. And they use, he has, the fakest gagging noises possible. It just sounds so bad. It's just so bad. But Bobby just he cleans off his jacket and he just starts to leave because he thinks, yeah, I'm done with my job, So he thought his mission was to basically save his life, right? So he walks away, and near the edge of the beach, Rafferty's waiting on his motorcycle. But Bobby gets to the motorcycle thinking, yeah, I'm already done. And Rafferty tells him, yeah, you're not finished yet. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I already saved his life. So we learn that his whole mission, in Rafferty's words, is to be his friend, to become his friend, and, like, help him a bit or something like that. Which is a really dumb task to give an angel, I would say. It's like, there's better things you could do, I would feel like, as an angel, especially because they're supposed to have powers and stuff, but I digress. So, the next day we get to see Lenny and Melissa at school. There's a brief scene in the classroom, but it's not really that important, so we're not really going to talk about it. Then we go to the cafeteria, and we get to see Bobby being his creepy self, because, see, Bobby's pretty much a perv in this movie, like, the whole time. Maybe they just should call this the Heavenly Perv instead. May as well have been. It's called, it would have worked out the same. But he just basically tricks this girl into dropping some stuff so he can stare at her boobs. You know, typical 80s stuff, probably. But anyways, see, the thing is that no one else can see Bobby except for Lenny. Well, currently we find out later in the movie he can reveal himself to others if he wants to, but he's only supposed to do it to Lenny. So, anywho, so Melissa's chatting with Lenny as well, though, at lunch, and we do see, like, a bit of another hint of that love romance twist I mentioned earlier, because, like I said, it's clearly she's into him, but she does invite him to go study. He never really says yes or no, but she gets into his case about it later, but, like, he never said yes from what I could notice on here. Anyways, but then he sees Sharon come in, and he tries to go approach her, but once again, Gallo and McIntyre are with her again, and McIntyre tries to make a move and beat up Lenny for trying to talk to Sharon, basically. But luckily Bobby is there, and he catches his foot and throws him into his table that's full of lunch trays for some reason. I don't know why there's just a table just full of dirty, used lunch trays, but sure, why not? He hits into that, and then he kicks that same table, because it's on wheels, into the serving area where he crashes into a wedding cake that's also, for some reason, in this cafeteria. What fucking school are they going to where you just have a wedding cake just there? There's never reference that there's any kind of wedding or anything like that, by the way, between, like, two teachers or anything like that. It's just, the wedding cake's just there, for no reason. But anyways, he flies into the cake, and then we cut to after school, and Lenny's back on the cliff again. So apparently he has a fucking death wish or whatever, and Bobby comes up on him, and they talk now. So, of course, Lenny is thankful about what happened earlier. Bobby explains to him that, if you wanted, I could help you woo Sharon, I could help you get her. I could help you so you guys get together, right? So then he tries to explain to him that the reason he can help him so much is because he's dead. So he tries to prove to him that he's magic, basically. And he tries a few different examples. Like, the first thing he tries is he takes off his jacket and he's like, I'm gonna make it fly. He throws it off the cliff and it just like slowly falls down and smacks against some rocks. It's so fucking, it was just funny. Because apparently he thought he could use his magic to make it fly, but it clearly didn't work. Then he also tries to make a tree disappear, because apparently he can do that as well. It also doesn't work. Then he tries another thing, which is ripping off Lenny's essay. Guess what? It doesn't work. I assume he was trying to like, fix the essay with his magic, but it doesn't make any sense, because he just rips it in half, puts it in the binder, closes the binder, and then opens it up again, and it's like, I guess he thought it was going to be like a sleight of hand magic trick or something, but imagine to use magic, you actually have to try to use magic, not just do things that might work. You actually have to know what you're doing. But his last attempt, he goes and he stands out in the road. Because, there's like the road that's by the forest that's in the cliffs near. Anyways, he just stands in the road while a semi comes towards him. And Lenny just watches him, doesn't say anything. He's like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? But Bobby fucking jumps out of the way at the last minute, which of course does not prove his point, so Lenny still doesn't believe him. So Lenny tries to leave, tries to go to his bike and leave. But Bobby keeps like pushing him and intimidating him, like trying to convince him that he's dead and stuff. And they end up walking off the cliff, but still like they're in air, so they're just floating midair. It's funny because there's like a whole like Looney Tunes ass sequence basically where they look down and it just pans out and they're like very clearly green screened over in midair off the cliff. And clearly they don't fall after that too, so clearly his magic works in some ways, I guess. So yeah, it only works when the plot is relevant for it to work. So we then go ahead and see. Yeah, so Bobby and Lenny, I thought at first they were supposed to be going to Lenny's home, but then they end up going to the mall, so I guess it doesn't matter. Point is that Bobby for some reason is riding his bike, which like, dude, you're an angel, you shouldn't be getting tired. I guess you're an angel. They never really said exactly if he's an angel. I think he might have mentioned it once or twice offhand that he's an angel, but he certainly doesn't feel like one, honestly. He looks just like any other kid. He's got no angel wings or anything like that, so... Plus, to be an angel, wouldn't you have to be, in heaven, not in purgatory or whatever? But whatever. So, he explains to them that they're going to get him a new look, to make him look a little less, nerdy and geeky and weak and all that shit. So they go on a little shopping montage, and this is one of the parts where we get some nudity. There is a part where Lenny's disagreeing about the clothes that he's wearing, and Bobby just zaps off the clothes to prove a point to him. It's dumb, but it's funny though. But he ends up picking out this jacket that's got like 17 zippers on it, and I'm not even kidding. It's way too many zippers than you'll ever need. If you want to be more realistic, it's basically at least 7 or 8 zippers on that one jacket by itself. That is the most unnecessary thing to have on a jacket, is that many zippers. After they're stopped by the mall, after that montage is over, we then go to the junkyard, where Bobby's going to help them get a new ride. And he finds a mostly put together car. I don't really think they ever say what it is, but regardless, we go to the junkyard and Bobby starts to use his angel magic or whatever to build and repair a car, because I guess that's something he can do. And that basically is another montage, because it's just them watching things fly by and go into the car and stuff. And so then they take the car out for a spin and they go to this local restaurant. Before Lenny goes in, Bobby tries to give him some pointers, tell him, what to do, give him some lines to give to the woman so that he can try to pick up some chicks, basically. And then we have yet another montage of Lenny trying to hit on girls and stuff. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention it during the shopping montage, but during the shopping montage, this pretty bad song called Animal Attraction plays. And then in this scene, that same song plays again during this third montage in a row, first of all. And second, it's only been 10 minutes since we last heard the song, and they are already playing it again. And so on a quick note, I did look up a little bit about that song because I was curious about it. Because, I was like, this is kind of terrible. Who the fuck made this? And the funny thing is that the person who made it used a pseudonym because they didn't want to put their real name on it. I assume, at least. So that's just hilarious to me that they were you could clearly tell they were not proud of this, I would think. But they did do at least some kind of professional stuff, I found, but nothing too amazing, honestly. So Jamie Bond, which is the person who sings Animal Attraction, is actually just a pseudonym. See, the real name is Joni Paladin, apparently. And Joni Paladin is also still not their real name, it's actually Joan Peltz, but regardless of all that, they actually recorded some vocals for Blue Oyster Cult. So she's actually on a few songs on an album called Club Ninja by Blue Oyster Cult. So I just think it's funny that she went under a pseudonym for that, which probably rightfully so for her, because, yeah, this movie wasn't exactly remembered very well. This movie came out literally in the same opening weekend as Back to the Future, and I think we all know what people saw, and it wasn't this. So moving on, obviously he strikes out during the montage and everything. It's funny, he gets beat up by this one chick's boyfriend or whatever. Bobby tries in one other place as well, though, which is a bar he used to go to, I guess, when he was alive. But some changes have been made to said bar. As Bobby heads in without Lenny, because Lenny tells him, he's like, yeah, you go on ahead without me, because I think Lenny already knew what was going on. But inside the bar, it's now a gay bar. Not just a gay bar, also. It looks like it's kind of like a BDSM type scene, because the bunch of guys wearing leather and shit inside there. So Bobby basically says one of his catchphrases, which is just, times are changing. It walks back out. But lo and behold, when they go back up to the car, or when Bobby goes back up to the car, 3 random-ass girls just come up to Lenny while he's in his little hot rod, and they ask for a ride home, so they cruise for a bit. Bobby kind of fucking stares at a girl's chest again, because of course he does. But, yeah. They get home, and Lenny's all happy because there's the first one of the girls was riding up front with him, and she was all over him and everything, so he feels real good about himself. And, yeah, there's a fun little scene here at Lenny's house where Bobby found a joint of Lenny's and just lit it up and started smoking it, but he didn't know it was weed. He wasn't really like quite smoking it properly. He was smoking it as if it was tobacco, which if you ever smoked weed, you know it's different. But he shows him the proper way, and then he gets high and floats. So he's literally high, guys. Do you get it? Do you get it? Are you laughing? It's such a funny joke, guys. It's definitely not like been done before anywhere. It's definitely not like extremely like obvious joke to make or anything like that. Yeah. It's still a fun scene though. It's stupid, but it's a fun scene. But Bobby's mom calls out for him because he hears like all the racket in the room, basically, because they're all giggling their asses off because they're high as fuck. Of course, you can always hear Lenny, but not the point. Anywho, when Bobby hears his mom's voice, Lenny's mom's voice, he can tell it sounds familiar. So he walks out to the hallway to see Lenny's mom, and it's his girlfriend Emily from the beginning of the movie. She's all grown up now. She is Lenny's mom. And Lenny's father is Joe, which is the guy who was racing at the beginning of the movie, the one who actually made it out of his car. So after that revelation, he goes off and he finds Rafferty and he tells him, he's like, how could you do this? You know, can't believe you assigned me this kid who's my ex-girlfriend's kid and all this shit, basically. And he demands a new assignment. And Rafferty kind of obliges and decides he'll see what he can do. But the next day at school, we'd see Sharon is now just all of a sudden super interested in Lenny. I guess all it takes is a hot rod and way too many zippers, and you'll get all the girls. Just remember that, guys. Dress like a Kingdom Hearts character and drive around a convertible hot rod, and you will be the talk of the town, apparently, okay? But so she basically asks him out, more or less, so they agree to make some plans and all that stuff, right? Meanwhile, we see Bobby checking out some of the wrecked cars that are still at the bottom of the cliff for some reason. It has been roughly 25 years or less. Regardless, it's been at least 2 decades, and they have still not removed these cars? Like, what kind of fucking town is this? It's fucking bullshit, you know? Anyways, Rafferty comes by and sees him. And he tells him, like, yeah, we got you a new assignment and everything. But, he's like, I pulled some strings, we got you something new. But Bobby, surprisingly, decides that he doesn't want to quit after all. He wants to go ahead and stick with his assignment. And it's a good thing he decided to. So we got back to school, and Lenny is fighting it out with Gallo and McIntyre. You see, Gallo didn't like the way that didn't like the way that Sharon, was interested in Bobby, so he, of course, decided to make a big deal out of it and challenge him to a fight. Now, Lenny beats the shit out of Gallo pretty much on his own, with a book, might I add, which is funny. Fucking Shakespeare book. And then Bobby takes care of McIntyre, which has gotta look funny to, the bystanders, because, like I said, no one can see Bobby except for Lenny. So, as far as they know, this kid just, knocked himself out somehow. It's just so fucking... it's gotta look so weird as a bystander in this movie, I bet. So later that night, Lenny goes to pick up Sharon, but she decides, I'm supposed to be back by 10, so let's forget about the diner, forget about food, let's just fuck. That's basically what she says. She doesn't say it like that, but that's basically what she says. And that is what they do. They drop off somewhere secluded, basically, and they just screw inside his car. We don't see anything, which is good because they are teenagers and we shouldn't be watching that anyways, so that's good. But, we just see their car rocking around and Bobby stands outside. Thankfully, he does not watch them. That would have been even worse. And put it past him, though. He's a fucking pervert anyways. So, he goes back, they drop her off after that, and Bobby says that they should celebrate. So, they somehow get beers and stuff, and they're already drunk by the time they get back to Lenny's house. I really had to know, how did they get booze? Because Lenny is underage, and Bobby is dead. It's like a ghost or angel or whatever. So either they stole it, or the clerk at whatever place they went to couldn't give 2 shits about, their job, and decided to just, let's just sell it to the children. To the child. Why not? Anyways, he comes back drunk, and of course his dad is mad, so they get to and all that stuff. Not really that important. The next day, we get to see Sharon and Lenny on a date. They go out to that diner that he used to work at. And of course, Melissa's still there because she didn't get fired, She sees them together. She really, passively aggressively gives them, their drinks. And then she runs off. and she cries in the back room, but it sounds more like she's laughing her ass off, honestly. It does not sound at all like she's crying. It is not believable. But Lenny decides they should leave, and they do. And we finally get to see Bobby reveals himself to Emily. That sounds wrong, but what I mean is he lets himself be seen by Emily. So now Emily can see him despite him being a ghost or angel or whatever. And she faints immediately. But he's able to get her home too eventually. And they start to go on a walk. And there's a song that plays during this scene as well. And to me, it sounds like a bootleg version of My Heart Goes On from Titanic. And I can't not think of it like that because that's exactly what it sounds like. It has the same like feeling to it. What I mean by it being like a ripoff of that song is it basically sounds. It has like the same tone to it, basically. Like it sounds like the same. It has like the same sound profile. I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. Just if you go listen to it, it's called Heart of Love. It's sung by the same person who did the Animal Attraction song from earlier. The one who had to use a pseudonym. That's how you know it's good, right? Anywho, look it up, Heart of Love by Jamie Bond. And tell me it doesn't sound, like, similar to My Heart Will Go On. Anyways, they have a little heart-to-heart, basically, and they end up back at the school gym, and they do a little dance scene for a bit. And then they end up back at this, I think it's supposed to be a lake area? It's not really clear. But apparently it's the last place that they spent any time together before Bobby died. And she explains to him that Lenny is Bobby's son. I have a quick tangent here about that, because that does not work at all. Like I said, we were never given a year, but we were given that it is the early 1960s. And if it was the early 1960s, then Lenny is Bobby's kid. That does not work. Because early 1960s to me would be anywhere between 1960 to 1964. After that, 1965 would be mid-60s. Anything after that is late 60s. So, the only way that it would work is if Lenny was born in 1967, because then he would at least be 18. But I don't believe that he's a senior. I don't think that they say. I'm pretty sure he's a junior, if I'm not mistaken. But 1967 is definitely not the early 60s. In fact, it is near the end of the 60s. Like I said, the late 60s. And that is the bare minimum that he would have to be born at for this to work. Because if he was born in any of the other parts, he would already be in his 20s. And I know I'm definitely in his 20s and still in high school. And if he is, then we have more concerns in his fact of being able to pick up women. He needs to learn how to pick up his grades if that's the case. And literally the only other way that could work for him to be Bobby's son is if he fucking stayed in the womb for like 3 years for some reason. And I don't think that ever happened because that's not something that happens. So it kind of makes me wonder if maybe Emily just kind of made that up or something. Like maybe she could tell he wanted, something like that. I don't know. It's dumb. But after she reveals that, Rafferty shows up in the background and he tells Bobby, like, we gotta go somewhere. So Bobby goes ahead and he takes Emily back home, and then he goes off with Rafferty. And they go back to Midtown, they're back at that bar again, and Rafferty explains to him that this is totally against the rules, and he's basically revoked his chance by breaking these rules, because he was only supposed to reveal himself to Lenny, because Lenny is his charge. But Bobby doesn't care that he broke the rules. He's happy now because he knows that he has a son. But meanwhile, we see Lenny. He meets up with Melissa again, just kind of in the middle of the road, basically. He's driving down the road and he sees Melissa walking on the sidewalk. He tries to offer her a ride and stuff, but she doesn't want him. She doesn't want to talk to him anymore, basically. Which, again, obvious love twist is obvious, But it just so happens that while he's stopped there chatting at Melissa, that Gallo and McIntyre and all these other goons and all these other random goons just show up out of fucking nowhere. There's really like 3 cars worth of kids just show up out of nowhere, and Gallo challenges Lenny to a guts race, a chicken race, just like the one Bobby lost his life in again. And of course, he accepts that challenge. And back at Midtown, Bobby sees this list of upcoming visitors or whatever to Midtown. I forget, it's like expected visitors or something like that. Anyways, and he sees Lenny's name on the list, and he decides that he has to save Lenny, even though Rafferty tells him it's fate, you can't change it. He's gonna die, basically. So flash forward in the race starting, and it's kind of like a retread of the scene from the beginning of the movie where it's Bobby and Joe doing the race, and then this time it's Lenny and Gallo. So the race starts, and right as the race starts, Lenny's mother comes on the scene. Well, Lenny's mother and his siblings. He also has brother and sister, but they're not important in the slightest. They do literally nothing the whole movie. They're just there. So I didn't even think to mention them until just now. But anyways, his family minus his dad all appear on the scene right as they're already starting off the engines and going. But Bobby appears inside Lenny's car as they're driving. Now Gallo does go ahead and bail, but Lenny tries to bail and his door is stuck. It's like locked or something's wrong with it. But he can't get the door open. And he goes over the cliff. The car explodes. Everyone thinks he's dead, of course. But somehow, I guess thanks to Bobby's magic or something, it's not really explained. His car goes over the cliff, it explodes, and then suddenly he's hanging on the edge of the cliff, climbing up. But we do see Bobby standing on top of Bobby's head and shoulders and stuff to get up the cliff. But that still does not explain what happens, so who knows. But he climbs up, and the first person he sees is Melissa, and she hugs him, and then they kiss. So finally, they're on the same page about their feelings and stuff. After the race, Bobby meets up with him and tells him, hey, it's nice to know you and everything, but I have to get going now. And he goes to Rafferty and gets on his motorcycle. And he at first thinks he's going to downtown, hell, because he broke the rules and everything, and also he's a horrible person, and he's a pervert and everything, but it's fine. But Rafferty tells him that this rule breaking and him demanding to save Lenny's life basically showed some selflessness, and he's now earned his ticket to Uptown. So they ride off into the sky on Rafferty's motorcycle. Bobby makes his way to the escalator and is finally able to board it and make his way to Uptown. We never get to see Uptown though. All we get to see is him just riding an escalator while the credits roll. And that's it. It's a pretty good chunk, at least a good 2 or 3 minutes of him just sitting there, looking towards the camera while he rides. Because it's the camera's right in front of his body basically, and he's just standing there, going up the escalator. Turn around a few times every now and again, look at Rafferty, give him a thumbs up, give him a little hey, look and all this stuff. That's it. He just sits there and rides the escalator for all that time. But yeah, that is The Heavenly Kid, and it's a movie. Like I said, I actually did find it entertaining, I'm not gonna lie. It's not the best movie ever made, it's not an amazing freaking teen comedy despite what the IMDb reviews will make you believe, but it's a decent film, it's not anything, it's not great. It's definitely kind of bad, but it's got that so bad it's good vibe, like I said before, and that's what I like. And sometimes that's all you can ask for, is that a movie entertains you, and this one did. So, while it is a silly film, if you have some time and you want to check out just a movie that you can just make fun of, maybe have a few drinks, maybe have some friends watch it with you. That's how I experienced it the first time, was by watching it with a bunch of friends in a Discord call. And that was an experience, for sure. But if you want to watch it, again, it is on Tubi, I would say go for it. It might be up your alley, you never know. Give it a shot. Maybe you'll enjoy Uptown too, right? But that's about all I want to say on this movie right now. I'm so glad that you listened to this. If you made your way all the way through this, that's great. Thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be looking at a movie called The Happiness of the Katakuris. It's a Japanese film that is a musical. It's only in Japanese, so we have to watch it in subtitles, unfortunately. But if that's not a bad thing to you, then great. It's on Tubi as well if you want to check it out. It's a musical about people who have to keep covering up deaths to keep their business alive, basically. It seems like a really fun ride. So that's going to be next week. Technically next week on Monday. And I can't wait for you guys to as well. It's on Tubi if you want to watch it before the episode comes out, and then we talk about it, and there we go. But thank you so much for tuning in. You can make sure to follow my podcast if you want to hear more, and to recommend to friends if you know anybody who would like this kind of content. We check out bad and obscure movies, as well as ones that I found to be cult classics. If there's anything that's underrated, in my opinion. We also do plan to cover some TV shows at a later time. At this time, I'm just trying to basically figure things out. I'm still kind of working on stuff. I know audio quality hasn't been the best on all these episodes, but we try. I do have a new mic that should be coming in sooner or later, so hopefully that'll help a lot, because the mic I'm using right now is like an old headset mic, which is and it's definitely not ideal for this kind of situation. But regardless of all that, thank you for listening. Follow me on Spotify, follow me on Twitter at BFE Podcasts. Email me any suggestions you may have to broadcastsfromelsewhere@gmail.com. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. This is Enigma, signing off. Thank you. Have a great day.